Welcome back. I've got Brandon Blewett on the line. Brandon, how are you today?
Doing well. How about yourself?
I am awesome. Really looking forward to this conversation. As somebody that has traveled a little bit in my life, when your name came up, I thought, oh, yeah, this will be a fun conversation. So, why don't you share a little bit about you and then we'll jump into the conversation.
Sounds like a plan.
So, share a little bit about yourself.
Oh, perfect. So my name is Brandon Blewett. I'm the author of the book How to Avoid Strangers on Airplanes, which is, a tell-all of a frequent flyer mishaps and whatnot. But it's also a tale of how the pains that we experience in travel mirror what we go through in our professional development and our personal journeys. So how did I come up with the book was a lifelong career of weekly travel. Most of that was domestic, so a lot of time spent at 30,000 feet, and it's been a career that's gone from consulting to leading the mergers and acquisitions, corporate development function at a private equity roll up. So that's just a bit about me.
Yeah, I've traveled quite a bit. I remember back in the late 90s, I worked for an insurance automation provider, and in 6 months, I was in 26 states. So
Oh,
it was, yeah, so I had the fridge magnets to prove it too. It was like, okay. And of course, when Hawaii came up, my boss took that one. I can't
right.
figure out why.
That's how
But
it always works. It's
yeah,
the
yeah.
it's the the super sexy locations that the boss gets to go to, and you wind up in in a small town airport that only has two regional flights a day.
Exactly, and a stand-up piano and yeah,
Right,
rocking chair. It's like,
right,
okay, it's like this is not O'Hare. I can tell that right now. This is definitely a smaller place. It's like you look at the airport and you go, how did that plane land here?
right.
It's like you got one shot at it and no wiggle room, but they do it. But yeah, so I've been through the travel game and continue to do so. Although the last couple of years not as much, but after the pandemic, 2022 was a really busy year for me and in the airports and all of that. And you see, one of the things I do is I get to the airport really early because there's always things that come up, and a lot of times I'll fly internationally, so you need to get there earlier anyway. And even though I have a Nexus pass that lets me in, and I don't have to take off my shoes and all that fun stuff, it still can take some time. So for me, I like to get there, that I'm at the gate or by the gate, then I can just relax and do some prep work or whatever I need to do, and it's so entertaining. I guess entertaining is probably the not the best word, but I find it entertaining just to watch people and how they interact with each other or just interact with the airport. You can tell pretty quickly, okay, there's somebody that travels a lot. There's somebody that this might be the first time they've ever been on a plane or they haven't flown in 10 years.
Right.
They're all kind of dazed and confused, and they could be families or it could be business people as well. And
Right.
it's it is a while it's a wonderful experience. I love flying. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong,
same.
but the getting to the plane aspect is still something that has its tweaks and concerns, and no rhyme or reason because some airports are so much easier to get through than others, and it's um, I'll pick on LAX for a moment. I flew in or
Easy one to pick on.
Oh yeah, and they're making it bigger,
Yeah.
which is not going to ease the they say we'll make more gates. Like that's not going to ease the problem, people.
Right.
Literally, I knew from past experience. It's like if you're going to go from the hotel and you're going to the airport for a plane, factor in at least a half an hour to actually get to where they can drop you off. It's like you land at the airport, then you're going to be in there for half an hour trying to get there. So but again, all of these little nuances, it for somebody that doesn't travel a lot, is something that comes up a lot. And in a way, it's a lot like your day-to-day life and the career that you lead, no matter what kind of work you do. You think you're ready for it, but there's always things that come up that are going to be out of the ordinary, and you have to be pretty agile and adapt quick. Otherwise, in this case, you're going to miss your plane, or in business life, you could make a mistake at work, lose a client, who knows? So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I mean that's exactly kind of the story of every week, right? There's so many times when you mentioned O'Hare, returning a rental car at O'Hare is a chore in and of itself because that exit only has the one lane where you can turn left to the to the rental car lots. And you get there late, you get to the bus late, there's traffic to get to the entry point for security. Security lines can be long. And then if you're like me, I was flying in and out of O'Hare a lot when I lived in Atlanta, and they put Delta at the very, very back of the terminal. So, it was always funny that it could be, the middle of December and I was sweating by the time I got onto the aircraft, even though it was, -3 degrees with the wind chill outside. But to me, that's so symbolic of what you go through in your career. You can think that you have the perfect plan mapped out and everything's going according to plan. And there's a car accident that's making traffic slow down even more. There's some type of event that it's a holiday period and there's more travelers that don't know how to get through security on a Thursday than usual. Same thing happens in your career. So it was really interesting to be able to write about not only kind of the funny habits that you see, but how they really do correlate to the journeys that we have in our careers.
You brought up a good point too about flying Delta to O'Hare. It's something that I've learned very late in the game, of course, but it's like, okay, where am I flying to? All right, you see there, and you say, okay, who's the preferred airline for that airport? All right, let's look at the flights there. And okay, if it's within, $50 and sometimes even $100 for the flight, I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go with that because that's the hub. It's not like a favorite kid kind of thing, but it is in a sort of way. It cuts out a lot of the nuances and some extra concerns because if you're taking a flight that isn't a main airline at an airport, it's like okay, okay, we land, well, we got to wait for our gate, and there's all kinds of preferences and protocol that they follow. So again, it's these things that you travel over time. You got to be able to kind of pivot, and again, it comes with experience, just like in business and life. And I think one of the things that, and this is something that jumped out, in reviewing your book too, is sometimes when you're on all of these flights, you're traveling all the time and you're doing all this work. Sometimes you have to kind of look within and say, okay, am I still enjoying this? Is
Right.
this still fulfilling me? Is this a career that I want to continue doing, or do I want to do something different? And to give yourself the permission to look within and ask yourself that question. A lot of people don't do that for some reason, but it's something that's very important because you may realize like, yeah, this was fun before and now not so much. So I'd love to hear
Right.
your thoughts on that.
No, I faced that. When I was in law school, I kind of fell into tax classes because I was actually good at them compared to other subject matters, and pursued a career in tax and thought that that was going to be the best use of my educational background, right? And so 2 years later, when I realized that, to be frank, I sucked at it compared to a lot of my peers, I had to make the decision to pivot so that I was actually, doing something that was good for my skill set. But even that wasn't necessarily what I needed to be doing for the rest of my life. And what's interesting is that I went into the pivot into management consulting knowing that I probably didn't want to make partner. But once you get into that rat race, you start to feel the pressure to compete with your peers. And it takes not getting promoted or takes realizing someone giving you some critical feedback that, hey, maybe you need to internally reflect. And I like to think of those as like holding patterns, delays, layovers, turbulence. And that doesn't mean your flight's not in the air. You're still up in the air, you're still moving, but the destination may be a little bit differently than you originally thought. So I think all of that is pretty relevant.
Yeah, as a reformed accountant, that's a nickname my brother gave me. My first career, other than the grocery store that I first worked at as a teenager, was at a public accounting firm and worked in accounting for almost a decade. And the thought of working in that field again, oh no, not a
You don't like
chance.
busy season?
No, although I tell you what, and it's been, let's see, I left, holy mackerel, that's a long time ago. 1995. We'll do the math there. It's been a long time. That's when I left the CPA firm. And to this day, April 16th, I feel this sense of relief in my shoulders. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know why. I filed my taxes before that and all that good stuff. But
Right.
April 16th, I just feel this. Why do I feel lighter today? It's like, oh, yeah, the end of tax season. That's why. It's a muscle memory. Your body goes, okay, you can relax now. But a surefire way growing up in Detroit to kill winters is because you're working 80 hours a week. You don't really experience winter because you're always inside. So
Right.
it's a positive side effect if
Right.
if you don't like winter. But one of the things too, that you kind of dabble into in the book, and and I saw that I like is when you're traveling or working and things like that, and again the title of your book is really important, is like you can meet a lot of interesting people when you're flying and talking with them and all that, and gives you some opportunities for relationships, collaborations, just to learn other industries, or even mentoring opportunities. So I'm guessing your consulting background kind of helped with that, but what drives that for you?
So I think the reason that mentoring became such a passion for me was I didn't go to a target school for graduate school. And so it took mentoring relationships and leaning on people that were, inside the firm that wanted to help people that went to, a particular school that had made it, right? And so making those connections for me was really important. And I wanted to make sure that I was able to, give back in that capacity. And so that's how I got involved in the Ole Miss MBA mentoring program, and it's been a lot of fun. I mentioned in the book two of my mentees. One is now leading a private sponsors coverage group in at an investment bank on the West Coast, and then another is at Citi in New York City. Which so it's fun to when you see how important it was to your career development. To me, it's fun to watch that happen with others. And in my case, when I was at the second consulting stint after the previous company that I was working at had sold, there became a time when I knew I needed to get off that ship, and it was actually my mentees that wound up connecting me with people that would ultimately lead to the job I have now, which is my dream job. So it's to me, it is funny how that relationship can come full circle where someone that you are mentoring right now 10, 15 years down the road, that could be someone that is extending the olive branch for you to have an opportunity that's pretty meaningful.
Oh, I agree. I love being a mentor, and I like sharing this story. I've shared it a couple times on the show where I went to college at Walsh College in Michigan, accounting degree, and several years ago, they asked me if I would be interested in their new mentorship program because they wanted their alumni to mentor, one of their graduate students, and I was like, of course, So I remember going back to campus, first time I'd been there in decades, and a lot had changed, but some
Right.
things were familiar. Kind of still knew. Oh, yeah, the bookstore's still there. Yep, they're still too high priced. Of course, that nothing's changed there. Do I want a hat? No, I've got too many hats. As you can tell, I need to wear them. But uh, so got into the program. Met a great guy, and he was in a business master's program, and just got to know him. And like I wasn't overly concerned on what his curriculum was and his schoolwork was. It's like, okay, what do you want to do when you get this degree? What's the purpose behind it, and what are you looking to do? And he was relatively recently married. His wife was going to medical school in Chicago, and he was going there on the weekends to see her, and so they had two places that they were renting, and separated all the time. And we're talking, he's like, yeah, she's really entrenched in there, and so she's not going to come here. So my hunch is after I graduate, I'll I'll go there and then we can do that. But it's like, I'm missing her, so I don't get to see her that much. And I said, you know what? This is probably going to be the end of my mentorship at Walsh College, but why don't you transfer to a business school and get a master's in Chicago? And it was just, I just kind of said it kind of off the cuff.
Yeah.
And 3 months later, he says, I'm transferring to, I forget what school, I think it was University of Illinois. They had a Chicago campus. I'm gonna get my
Right.
master's through them. I'm like, that's awesome. And so you're going to save a ton of money on rent because you guys can live together and you'll be together. And likelihood you'll probably stay there because, Chicago tends to keep their medical students locally, and, they've got a lot of great hospitals there. So, it's the weather's going to be the same.
Right.
So, yeah, you've got baseball, you got football, you got hockey, basketball. So you got those things covered if you like those sports. So you're good to go. And, So afterwards, I'm thinking, am I mentoring wrong? I don't think that was Walsh's intent for me to get them to lose tuition money, but I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it as, I'm mentoring somebody to be their best. And I thought, you know what, this might be a good thing. It had nothing to do with his career path necessarily or his degree or what everything else. It was more on the human side of things. And I
Right,
think when we mentor, we have to make sure that we are including that in the mix because this is a human being and they've got all kinds of different things that are impacting their lives. So if there's an opportunity for us to provide guidance, they got to do it. Being say, maybe consider this, and they did. And I got a note from them a few years ago.
that's
He
awesome.
graduated. She's close to it. They started a family. I'm like, that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's cool. It's just I really enjoy that aspect of it. And then I was like, I didn't get the invite back to mentor. So I'm guessing they're like, yeah, no, that's not how we meant it. It's like, and I understand why they would feel that way. I mean, I probably could go apply and do it, but it's like, okay, I've done that. Now I can mentor
right,
in other arenas, and whatnot. Maybe not to have people move away, but who knows? If that makes the most sense for them, for their career and their life, I'm
right.
going to suggest it anyway.
Yeah, no, and another avenue that I mentor through is SMU is my undergrad alma mater. Huge year this year for sports for us, especially in football. But which was great. We won 10 total games my 4 years there, and I was one of the students that somehow decided to attend every home football game. So it was kind of a tearjerker to see us make it all the way to the playoffs this year. But the school has this cool program called Life After Ball, and it's to all athletes at the university to help prepare them for what's next. And so you get to speak on panels. I oftentimes do it related to finance or consulting, but they bring in just a whole gamut. And it's really fun to sit down with student athletes because for so long they thought I'm going to be playing the sport for the rest of my life, and there comes a point when it's either, hey, college is at the end of the road, or I'm not going to make the cut in professional sports. And so you're able to give, it's not quite the same as what you did, like, hey, go to Illinois, Chicago to be with your girlfriend or fiance, but you are able to let them know that there are avenues that they can pursue. Open them to a Rolodex, to date myself, of people that can help them, and just explain to them the various job opportunities and career opportunities that are out there. And it's incredibly rewarding. I started the book that I wanted to be Jerry Maguire, and I kind of feel like this is a much more meaningful way to be able to accomplish that. And it's fun to get to, like, when they're in season, you get to watch them play, whether it's on the court, on a field, or in a pool, and then watching them kind of turn into these, you sing on LinkedIn or when they send you emails, hearing how that was impactful is, it's fun, right? It's just something that it's beyond the, hey, I checked a box, this makes me a leader. It's really getting to make an impact on someone's life, which is fun.
Oh yeah, and I'm thrilled that SMU had a great season. I remember them way back in the day when they were
Yeah,
amazing, and then of course, they went away completely for too long.
right,
And now they're back and again, by having a season like that, then what that does is it's on the radar for other players because players want to play on teams that win. And
right.
like, yeah, and now that the transfer mechanism in college football is
And
so
I have,
much easier than it used to be, where it's like, okay, if I want to transfer, I got to lose a year. Those games are over, thankfully. So
right,
it's like, okay, it'll be like, okay, I want to go work at this company. Oh, I got to take a year off of work before I can go
right,
work there. No, it makes sense, and the compensation side of things. I mean, there's all kinds of different conversations you could take on there, but ultimately,
right,
it's like these are future leaders, and we want to invest in them. Yes, hopefully, and we know the percentages are really small of the number of college athletes that make it to the professional level in whatever sport it is. It's very small. And of course, with international sport, gives them a few more opportunities, but still a tiny percentage. So
right.
knowing that, it's like, okay, what other interests, what lessons can we learn from the field or the pitch or the rink or the court that can be applicable in what you do. The discipline of and
Yes.
practice and all of that is, I said, don't ever forget what that taught you, because if you do that in your business life, whatever you do, you're going to crush it. You will. It's a guarantee, because the majority of people half-ass it. And
Yeah.
if you go in there with discipline, you will rise to the top, and you'll be, wherever you want to go. And
Yeah.
it's up to you.
Yeah.
And encourage them on that. And a lot of times too, I've seen, former athletes, they make it a game. It's they miss that competition spirit, so they make it a competition. It's not to beat anybody necessarily, but it's like, okay, I want to crush this one out. I want to do something better on this. I'm going to approach it this way, and they do it, and then they get that, excitement, and that hit of, okay, well, I won, and then they get to do it again and again, and you see it. There's been some extremely successful former athletes that have absolutely crushed it in the business world. Um, Shaq Diesel's a great example. I mean, what
Right.
business doesn't Shaq own?
No.
It's like, I
No.
mean, but it's like, and it's like, oh, okay. But he's obviously has a strong team of people and leaders that he puts in place to make these organizations successful, which allows him to continue to do that. And it's, again, there's really no limit other than yourself. So don't limit yourself for growth. And I think that's, again, that's, throughout your book is like, look, you take these challenges, the flight delays, flight cancellations, where's my luggage, yeah, airports and airlines hate air tags, by the way. Where's my bag? Well, I know where my bag is. It's not on the plane. Uh, it's still over there. And so, but it made it, so, but yeah, there's so many opportunities in life. And I think the more people, just, get past that initial state of fear and lean into it, and start leaning to it, then that's when we get great leaders, and great leaders lead great companies. And you and I deserve that. We deserve the best in the world, because we're all capable of delivering it.
Yeah, no, and to me, the thing with some of these great leaders, you mentioned Shaq having a great team around him. When I travel, I travel a lot. You travel a lot, so there are tricks that we can independently do ourselves to make things easier. But how often do I rely on, yes, doing my homework on maybe a different flight that I want to get on, but it takes, a gate agent, sometimes it takes, a pilot or a flight attendant having, advice. Sometimes it's somebody on the phone, and it's having people and being able to be receptive to feedback that can make you, or that can give you a flight option that gets you to your destination, on that same day, even if your original was, canceled or, delayed indefinitely. And the same thing in professional development. There, if it weren't for people that were willing, if it weren't for my willingness to have honest and candid feedback about what are my strengths, what am I doing well, what am I not doing well, you know, you miss your you potentially miss your flight, right? In your career, and you wind up somewhere that maybe isn't as gratifying or fulfilling as it could have been. And I think Shaq doing that is being able to surround himself with incredibly smart people that are probably very honest with him, even when he doesn't want that. I think that's something that every leader really needs to have, so you don't wind up in an echo chamber, just hearing what you want, and then finding out that you've ended up somewhere that's not probably the best fit for you.
Yeah, it's important information. Always be looking for opportunities to learn. And I think if you do that as an individual, you will continually grow, even if it's 1% a day. But
Right.
1% a day over a year, you've 3x'd yourself in a year.
Right.
And you look back and you go, wow, how did that happen? Just discipline, determination, and a little bit of grit, maybe a little bit of coffee, or maybe another beverage you like, whatever your flavor, go for it. But whatever you need to do to be the best version of you, society needs it. That's why you're here. So love this conversation. Where can people find out more about you, your book, and everything else you're doing?
Absolutely. So my website is www.brandonblewett.com. The book's on Amazon, it's on Kobo, Barnes and Noble. Working on getting it into some indie bookstores here in the next couple of months. And then if people want to follow me, it's Brandon in the Air on Instagram and X and on YouTube. And I've departed the world of Facebook. So just left Facebook in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I did the same thing, and then still had an Instagram account and
Yeah.
needed needed a Facebook account in order to switch the account over to a business Instagram account. So I'm
Right.
like, all right, so I'm on there, but I'm not.
Yeah.
And so it's just yeah, yeah, well, that could be another episode altogether. But we'll save that for another day. So love what the work you're doing, buddy, and I really appreciate your time today.
All right. Thank you.